Here finally to talk some MLB. Here with a few of the Sports Keg guys, Matt Dickson, as you guys know, Twatty, Joey Werk, and special guest here, Peter Loshak. We'll begin by starting with an NL preview, so maybe best bets we like, and touch on a few different topics for the NL, then head into the AL as well with a similar format. Peter, specifically, what's happening? It's nice to finally do a show with you.
Oh, hell yeah. It's great to do a show. And with Twatty and with Joey Werk. This is awesome. I'm having a good time already.
Yes, I mean, I've been doing shows with them, so I kind of know what their prerogatives are and what they've been doing. But what have you been up to?
You don't know a thing about my prerogatives, baby. No one really does. I've been doing rugby and MMA, doing very well with that. I was killing it with quarantine basketball, but to be perfectly honest, Chinese basketball and Israeli basketball has been killing me a little bit. Still up overall, but just following rugby and MMA and Asian hoops.
That is awesome. I mean, quite the triage.
Yeah.
It's like some Vegas Dave type stuff. I mean, ultimately, I respect it. We all have to kind of find our own niche during these crazy times, right?
No. Rugby, I have a solid handle on rugby, and my top play in rugby every week, which I haven't shared with anyone except my friend and coworker, is good. I'll tell you what it is off camera if you want this week as well.
That's awesome. So I guess without further ado, we can probably just dive right in. If you guys have any questions in the chat for this season, definitely post them. We'll try to get to some questions after we're done with the breakdowns. But to start with the National League, what type of teams does this shortened season hurt, and which does it kind of help? Twatty, I'll start with you. Like, what is your thoughts there, specifically for the National League?
Yeah, not to be Captain Obvious here, but I think front-end top pitching talent really makes a difference here. Because what I actually foresee is come game 40, game 45, when you have a jumbled mess of teams, I actually foresee people going to 3 or 4 man rotations. So because what will happen by game 40, Scherzer only has 60 innings on his arm. So why wouldn't you bring him back on 4 days or 3 days? Or Strasburg only has 65 innings on his arm, and you're in this tight race because it's only 60 games. I really see them shortening the rotation. So that's really big for like the Dodgers, the Nationals, the Rays, teams that have 3 or 4 really good starters. I really think that's going to be an advantage. Now, some people are going to disagree. They're going to be like, why are you going to pitch those guys on 3 days rest? Well, the big thing is if they don't have the innings on their arm, and you're in a pennant race, you run your 3 or 4 best out there. So I think anyone with high-end, front-end pitching talent, it really makes a difference.
Now, Pete, what is your thoughts on that same topic? Are you in the same neighborhood there, or you have a little different perspective?
No, I basically agree with what he said, except that I'm, not even trying to guess what we're going to see from various teams. I think we're going to see a lot of weird, wild, wacky stuff as far as pitching is concerned. And I'm not talking about like what the Rays do, where they have a starter and then some guy pitching 7 innings. We might see 3 innings and 3 innings. I think teams are going to be making it up on the fly as they go along with their friggin' analytics and AI, wherever the hell they got. It's like game 35, some analytics guy from the Rangers is going to say, let's, start of 3 innings and then have a reliever for 1. It's going to be weird, unpredictable stuff for sure. I think overall, though, definitely any way it shakes out, pitching depth is going to be huge, way more important than it ever was in previous seasons, because obviously, stud starting pitchers won't burn out, and the bullpens are going to be deeper because there's more guys allowed in the bullpens, and the stud relievers won't get burned out either. So in general, I'm looking at in general fading teams, and I'm kind of down on teams that don't really. Some teams have just awesome, eye-popping pitching depth, and of course there's injuries that could factor in. But I have kind of the Cubs and the Phillies circled as 2 teams that have questionable pitching depth to me, both starting and in the bullpen, and I think that's like more likely than not to burn them.
Yeah, and I think I'm on the same page there. Like, I think if you're a team with a few really good arms, I think you're going to be helped out with the shorter season. And I think if you're a team with not as good arms, I think it's going to hinder you more. But I do think you're going to see a lot of quick triggers on guys in the middle of starts getting pulled. And I say that because all these games are worth, you could argue, 3 times as much, right? Than they would be on a normal season. So wins are going to be a lot more important. I think you're going to see a lot quicker band hammers, if you will, with guys getting pulled. Now, Joey, what's your thoughts here on the shortened season for the National League? Who it helps and who it hurts?
Yeah, so let's not forget they implemented the rule where relievers have to pitch to 3 batters. So bullpens definitely, have a bigger niche this year as well. So, but in my opinion, for the NL, teams that I think favor are like the Mets and Brewers. For example, the Mets, the addition of adding a DH, Yoenis Cespedes, he's basically at this point in career where he only could really play DH because he gets hurt all the time. So I think that works for them. And then the middle of the road team like the Brewers, in previous years they started out really good, but suffered a losing streak basically middle of the year. With the shortened season, that will help out. And plus they get to play the Tigers, Royals, and White Sox a total of 12 times. So those are the 2 teams from the NL that I think this helps a little bit.
Now,
I will just jump in and say that I agree with the Brewers. Greg Counsell is also a notoriously sort of bullpen-centric manager anyway, so that probably serves them well this year as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm interested to see how these teams kind of navigate throughout the season, right? Because ultimately, if a team starts out pretty cold, right, maybe they lose 15 to 20, 20 of 25, something crazy. Do they just give up? Like, do they just kind of throw in the towel and become like a whole different team? Whether it was a team that was supposed to be bad that played bad, or whether it was a team that wasn't supposed to be bad that's playing bad, regardless, the locker room, you're 30 games in, you're say something like 7 or 8 in 22. There's going to be 1 or 2 teams like that at least, no? A team like that just kind of hang up the cleats in every game. They have no more motivation. So I'm interested to see how teams kind of navigate in that regard. But all in all, yeah, I do think it's going to definitely help the teams with the better arms up front and definitely hinder the teams without the better arms. Moving on to the next thing. So teams that are underrated and overrated coming into this year in the National League. It's an interesting topic, and I think you're going to get different perspectives depending who you ask here. Joey, I'll start with you. Teams, maybe a few teams you think that might be underrated in the National League coming in and a few that might be overrated.
Yep. So underrated, I got to start with the Reds. I really like the Reds this year. Their rotation is solid with Sonny Gray, Luis Castillo, Trevor Bauer, and Anthony DeSclafani at 3 and 4. They're both on the last year of their contract, so that's a little added incentive. They did sign Wade Miley in the offseason. So that's 5 good starters they got right there. Offensive side, they added Mike Moustakas, Nick Castellanos, Shogi Okama from the JPL. So I really think Cincinnati, and they also are in the same boat with the Brewers where they're playing the White Sox, Royals, and Tigers 12 to 14 times this year. So that definitely helps. And again, as Pete mentioned, the Cubs and Cardinals, I'm low on both of those teams this year because they don't have starters really. The Cardinals have 1 ace, and then that's it. So Cincinnati's going to be playing them as well. So I'm really like Cincinnati. I know you could get them to win the division at +2 something around. Even I already bet them over 31.5 wins. So that's like my best underrated team. You wanted me to name an overrated team, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you have one, at least you think that might be.
So overrated, I got the Phillies definitely. The rotation is trash past Aaron Nola. Zach Wheeler just got paid, so we really don't know what's going to come out of him. So I do expect some regression from him as well. Their lineup is good 1, 2, 3. Then it's a big drop off. They have nobody hits for average on their team. I'm a big Didi fan because he came from the Yankees, but you definitely expect a lot of regression from him as well because he's not playing in the Yankee Stadium small baseball field. So the Phillies are a team I'm definitely fading, and I also like their under. I think it's 30.5 and -104 I already bet that, so I'm on the under for them.
Yeah, I mean, the Reds is definitely a good call. I mean, they quietly have some sticks too, especially deep into that lineup. Pete, what is your thoughts on teams underrated, overrated, National League?
Yeah, I mean, when I think of underrated and overrated, I more think of expected, lines for game by game as opposed to season win totals. So I don't know exactly, where the market will price these teams, but again, I'd be looking for maybe some betting value with Milwaukee. Definitely thinking the Cubs are prone to being overvalued at times this year, if not all year. Again, Philadelphia, overvalued. Miami looks really bad. They're going to be a big dog every game. But, my numbers, which are not perfect, far from it, but have them as likely to be overvalued. Let me see. Maybe Washington. Again, we'll see how much the market, how much line respect they get. But I'm guessing there'll be a fade, even though I think the shortened season helps them. They're all a little bit older, And, I think they will get a lot of line respect. So I think, we'll look back and see that Washington was overall a good fade. And maybe Arizona has some betting value. They're a team, they don't have really flashy names, but I think they might have a sneaky good pen, a good DH platoon, kind of a nice solid roster with depth, not a lot of flash, and they might be undervalued. And Colorado looks like they don't have an offense, and a bullpen's mediocre at best, so I'm looking for them to be overvalued and maybe a good fade.
Yeah, I mean, the best part about Colorado is they're gifted with that park. I mean, Jesus, my little sister could probably put one out in Coors.
So that's why when they have a bad offense, they tend to be wildly overvalued because their offense, from betting public's perspective, doesn't look quite as bad as it often is,
Yeah, it's a good point. Chwadi, what are your thoughts there?
Oh, man, I could talk about this for an hour. But first off, the Marlins, okay, they're still not going to win any games just because of their the competition they're going against in the divisions they're playing. But you bring Corey Dickerson in with Jonathan VR, you bring in Aguilar from last year, to go with Brian Anderson, Rojas. At least they're going to be able to hit a little bit this year. So I think they're an improved team. It's not going to show in their record, obviously, because of who they're going to be playing. But I love the Royals. I think that, this is a team that can match bringing back Mondesi back, who's one of my favorite players. You're going to put Whit Merrifield behind him, who's one of the best players in baseball. The home run leader behind him, and George Solar with O'Hearn. And you still have Salvi Perez, who's one of the best hitting catchers coming back from injury. You got Maikel Franco to hit the bottom of the lineup. That's a team that can really hit. But I would say my biggest underrated team is going to be Arizona. You're talking about Walker, Ketel Marte, Starling Marte, David Peralta, Escobar. This team can really hit, and their pitching's improved. You bring in Mad Bum and you bring in the kid from Gallen from Miami. So I don't love their pitching staff, but it's improved. So this is a team that I really like. It's too bad they're playing in the Dodgers division, or they could win a division if it wasn't in with the Dodgers. Overrated, I'm actually against Pete on this one. Oh, by the way, the Reds underrated too, if anyone considers them underrated. I mean, great staff, good lineup, and great bullpen. Brewers is a team I'm a little bit down on. They've lost a ton of offense, and their pitching staff is terrible. I mean, it's in the bottom three. Now, that's their starters. Bottom three, you still got Hader on the back end, who you'll be bringing in a lot. So this is a team that's going to be able to hit a little bit, even though you've lost a lot of offense in Moustakas and the guys and Thames. But they really can't pitch. And you got one good arm in the bullpen. So that's a team I'm probably looking to fade a little bit.
Just to comment on that, I'm expecting Milwaukee to maybe be a little bit undervalued. And most of that is because my numbers, again, far from perfect, but expecting some significant positive regression from their pitching. I think their pitching got significantly unlucky last year, especially the bullpen. So we'll see.
And one last team, the Red Sox. Are you kidding me? I mean, they just lost another pitcher today. Colin McHugh just said, fuck it, I'm not playing. Rodriguez got the corona. Sale is hurt. I mean, you got Evaldi and Perez out there. I mean, that team, and their bullpen is a sack of shit too. I mean, it's better than their starters, but their starters are just terrible.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll comment with the Arizona thing, and it is something that I will need to be touched on at least lightly, is Arizona's got a great lineup, not so great pitching, and they play in a division where, because remember, you're playing, now 66% of your games inside your division and the rest against, obviously, your counterpart in the other league. They're going to be in a lot of pitchers' parks this year, for the bulk of their season. I mean, Arizona with the Humidor kind of became a pitcher's park. The Dodgers is by no means a true hitter's park. San Fran and San Diego, two of the biggest pitcher's parks in baseball. Can that really neutralize that entire team? And if it can, then really where is the upside with Arizona? So interested to see on them. I definitely would consider them overrated just because I'm a little concerned at what parks that lineup's going to have to play in for the bulk of their season. And they just don't have the pitching to compete specifically in that division. Now, if we could give a quick breakdown of some teams in each division and who you're going to believe, or more or less believe, will be the division winner. We'll start with you, Pete. Breakdown. You don't have to go, team by team per se, but for each division, if you're making one bet, who's going to win it? Who is it for each in the NL?
Who's going to win it?
Win their own division.
Right, or who has betting value, because that's kind of the way. Okay, you want me to just start with where do you want me to start? The American League?
You could start. Well, we'll go National League for this segment, but you could start and say the Central.
Okay, the Central. That's a tough one. I'm looking at the odds right now. I definitely think the Cubs, priced roughly the same as the Cardinals and the Reds, is way overvalued. I would definitely bet the no on the Cubs on that one. I guess I would take the Reds. I mean, I'm as high on the Reds as everyone else, but the Reds are kind of like to my eye at least, the White Sox of the National League. Like, everyone, they're probably going to have a nice year this year, but everyone's kind of expecting it. Probably going to be, reflected in the betting lines, and they are the slight favorite to win the Central that I'm seeing right now over the Cardinals. So, I definitely wouldn't take the Pirates. They're going to be bad, and maybe they'll have some betting value, but it all depends on how much the market, gives them credit for being horrible, which they're plus 400 right now, I'm seeing, to win the Central. I guess definitely not the Cubs. I guess I would take betting value-wise the Cardinals at 250 or the Reds at 240. I like the Cardinals, though. I like the Cardinals more for unders, though. I have them circled as a team that is looking for unders, though, more to bet on them. But I'll take a shot with the Cardinals at plus 250.
Cards definitely would appear to be the most complete team in that division. Whether or not that holds true over a short season, we'll see. What do you think about the East, Pete?
The East, the Nats at plus 250 and the Braves versus the Braves at plus 210. That's Braves all day. I definitely expect the Nationals to be in for some serious regression. Again, even though I think that the shortened season probably helps them. Phillies, down on them. They're the fourth choice. Marlins, we know they're horrible. The Mets, the Mets, there's a lot of wild cards and a lot of uncertainty right now with my assessment of the Mets. So I'd have to go with the Braves, even though they're the favorite, and probably some betting value, even at 2-1.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of that makes sense. And on the West, who do you like there in the National League?
I mean, it's just impossible to see the Dodgers not winning it. I mean, they'd have to have maybe 18 injuries to not win the West. I mean, how do they not win it? At minus 470, is their betting value with the Dodgers? Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
Even though I'll get mocked for that.
I think it's more or less because of who they get to play so much throughout their season.
Yeah, all of it.
The Giants, the Rockies, the Diamondbacks. I mean, you could argue the Padres could give them a little bit of a run, but I mean,
They'll win a couple games.
Yeah,
but to win the division, and they're just so deep, the Dodgers,
Yeah, no, I mean, that should be the Dodgers arguably running away with it. Chwadi, what are your thoughts on the NL Central? Who comes out of it? I know you were kind of talking a little bit on the Reds. Do you think they come out of that division?
Reds, yeah. Reds pretty easily. Cards, Cubs fight for second. The Reds just are balanced. I mean, their starting five is in the top five in baseball, and their bullpen is probably in the top 3 in baseball, and they can hit. So to me, this is a no-brainer. I got it at plus. I couldn't believe it. I think I got it at plus 300. I thought it was going to be plus 125 or plus 150 or something. I think they're clearly better than the Cardinals, clearly better than the Cubs, and then we'll have Milwaukee in fourth, and then the Pirates in fifth.
Now, what are your thoughts on the East for the NL? Who comes out of there?
Tough one. That's a tough one. I'm going to go Braves, but if my theory is right and they do shorten the rotations, come game 40 or 45, obviously the Nats are in play with Corbin, Scherzer, and Strasburg. But I'm going to take the Braves. I think they're one of the 2 or 3 best teams in baseball.
And then the West is just Dodgers, right? I mean, Dodgers or don't bet it.
Although I do have D-backs coming in second. I have D-backs coming, Padres third. Yeah.
I like the D-backs call. It's definitely at minimum ballsy. I will say this: baseball, with how streaky it is, it's not going to surprise me at all to kind of start buying low and selling high on teams after 10, 15 games. Because again, you know how streaky it is. You know the variance with baseball. You know how teams can get hot and get cold all of a sudden quickly, and then it can stay for long periods of time. So a team like the Dodgers, if they start out 2-6, which wouldn't be crazy to think. Maybe you get a little better number on them, and other teams start out a little better. You get a little worse number on them. Always leverage the markets the best you can. Now, Joey, what is your thoughts? Who comes out of the Central and the NL?
So the Central, I definitely think it's the Reds, but no one's given the Brewers any love, but I mean, their best pitcher was Brandon Woodruff, and this is his second full season, so he should definitely be a little better. They did sign Josh Lindblau from the KBO. He was 20-3 with a 2.50 ERA and 30 starts there, so he could be sneaky value there. Their bullpen's obviously decent, and they did add off-season additions in Justin Smoke, Avisail Garcia, and Eric Sogard, who are all slotted to be in their starting lineup. So I'm definitely not high on the Cubs. The Cardinals, they got Jack Flaherty. Past that, there's not really – their starting rotation is pretty damn bad. And the Pirates, you just got to throw them out. But there will be times I will bet the Pirates throughout the year. So there'll be sneaky – I'm very high on Mitch Keller. So there's be sneaky value throughout the year, but not to win the division.
And now, what is your thoughts? You're going to be a homer on the East here with the Mets, or you got something else doing there?
No, I got to take the Braves. I mean, they won 90 games the last 2 years. They added Marcell Ozuna. Obviously, the rotation's really good with both Mikes and Max Fried. And then Sean Newcomb is coming from the bullpen last year, where he had a 3.04 ERA in 51 games. They made him a starter this year, so that's 4 good starters they got. It's really hard. It is hard to count out the Nationals as defending champs, especially with the big 3. But, they did their lineup. What's up?
Yeah, they lost Rendon.
Yeah, their lineup is ugly. They got Starling Castro batting third, But, again, I'm pretty sure if you do 60 games in a season, they probably don't even make the playoffs last year. So, But I'm throwing out the Phillies, definitely throwing out the Marlins. And the Mets, I'm not sold on the Mets either.
And that's another interesting division where you have a lot of hitters' parks there, with the Braves, Nats, and Phillies. And how does that deal with the pitchers having to play, a larger percentage of their games out in those parks? So interesting to see how that plays out, especially since there's a lot of decent pitchers in that division, that's for sure. And what are your thoughts on the West, Joe? Are you taking any chances, or sticking with what makes sense?
So last year the Rockies, after 74 games, they were 40-34. Then they went 31-57 the rest of the year. Their home and away splits between starting pitchers are terrible. So I mean, obviously that's just taking a chance. I'm pretty sure the Rockies, I'm not advocating betting them. The Rockies are plus 3,000 to win the division. But I definitely can't lay the minus 715 on the Dodgers. So I do like the Diamondbacks. The Padres should be a little better and compete, but their starting rotation, other than Chris Paddock, is very much up in question, and their bullpen ranked 23rd in the MLB last year with a 4.83 ERA in the 7th and 8th inning. So the bullpen that better fix, or they're not going to compete here anyway. But I'm just going to watch this division and not bet anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a tough division to try to find any value anywhere. And my boy Willie Parker said that I love Mitch Keller. That is absolutely correct. So Keller's advanced numbers are just ridiculous year in, year out. Well, not year in, year out, but this year specifically. They were ridiculous. His Sierra xFIP was so much better than his ERA, but yet he continued to get rocked start after start, so tilting. But yeah, I will most likely be right back on that bandwagon. I don't really care. I mean, the advanced numbers are what they are. He's a good pitcher. At some point, that'll round itself out. So if we could jump into one of, the last topics here in the National League, who comes out to play in the World Series and ultimately who ends up winning it? What do you guys think for out of the three divisions ultimately? Who ends up in the World Series in the National League? Chwadi, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it's going to be tough to see who plays who, but I'll go Reds, Dodgers, and I'll go shit. Do I got to go? I got to pick one? Reds, Dodgers. I'm going to go Dodgers.
Okay. Joey, what do you think? National League, who's going to the World Series?
So my two looks were the Braves plus 700 or the Reds plus 1,300. I'm not taking the Dodgers at the short line. But I'll take the Braves.
I like it. Not eating the chalk. I can appreciate that. Pete, what do you think?
Yeah, I haven't run the numbers on this yet, but and the Braves at 7-1 does look appealing. That's the only thing I consider other than the Dodgers. The Dodgers are just so deep. Again, they'd have to have a disastrous year to not win the pennant. Although anything can happen, obviously in the postseason. But they're so deep. I guess I'd have to take Dodgers at 8-5, even though there's no point to that comment. It's the most obvious.
Yeah, I think ultimately the issue is that realistically, if you think the Dodgers will make the playoffs, which they more than likely will, they are just a tough team in the National League to beat. 3 games out of 5, 5 out of 7. At 4 out of 7. They're built from top to bottom better than every National League team in every asset. But now, granted, there could be some nuances that happen in this short season where a guy or two hurt, and then of course they slide down the sled. But if they get into the playoffs healthy, man, it's tough to imagine they don't make the World Series.
Right.
Okay, so guys, from the National League perspective, what are some bets, if any, you made? I know that this is a weird year all in all in terms of really trying to truly justify value coming into this year. But are there any bets you've made, props, totals, et cetera, coming in, specifically on the National League side? Joey, I'll start with you. Anything you've liked in the marketplace, maybe you triggered on?
Yep. So I took Phillies under 31.5 wins at -106, and I took the Reds over 31.5 at -116. Those are my two plays.
I like it. We're doing this like ball gargling thing with the Reds. I can appreciate that. Pete, what do you? Any bets you've been on, made coming into this year for the National League?
Well, I haven't made any bets yet because I'm not going to tie up rugby money betting, baseball futures. But yeah, I totally agree with the idea that the Reds and the Phillies should have the same season win total is preposterous. 31 definitely would take Cincinnati on the over and Philly on the under. But no, I haven't made any actual bets yet. No.
And then Twatty, what about you? Anything you've been on? Any bets you found that might have a little value that you're willing to sit there as a little investment for a few months?
I'm just chalky in baseball, and I think that's why I win, FYI. Acuna, MVP, Flaherty, Cy Young Award winner.
God, God. I mean, I love that call because I love him. I was all over him last year. It was like so many games I lost betting him 1-0. So tilting. But no, I love him. I think he's proven he can be one of the best starters in the NL. I like that call as well. I mean, he's as good as it gets, especially right now in this time. But interesting to see how some of these pitchers start out, right? Because it's an early season. You see it often where you got a full season where, a starter just his first 3 or 4 starts, his ERA just balloons. But now you don't have a whole lot of time to really clean that up, right? So interested to see how some of these pitchers really approach it and they deal with it. Now, me personally, I don't have any futures bets. I've never really been a big futures guy for MLB just because I'm more of a preseason futures guy. Just because I'm more of a wait-and-see guy. Spring training can only tell you so much about what's going to happen in MLB. It's very comparable to the NFL preseason. So I don't have any futures bets I like, but I am a little bullish on the Reds personally. I wouldn't consider them an underrated team just because. But overall, no bet specifically from me in the NL. Now, what I do want to mention is, because before we slide into the American League, any final thoughts you guys have on the National League coming into this season? Twatty, I'll start with you. Any type of like last minute efforts for you as a go away message for the National League?
Not really. Again, I think it's going to be very chalky. I think the team that we all think is going to win is going to win, and that's the Dodgers. So that's really my only takeaway.
Yeah, and Joey, I know that you're higher on the Reds, kind of like a few of us here. Any other like lasting things on the NL to leave off with?
I think I wouldn't definitely not lay a lot of money on it because the variance is high with only 60 games. And I'm pretty sure after 60 games last year, the Dodgers wouldn't have made the playoffs. So I know everyone's all over the Dodgers, gargling them, but at the number that they're at, I definitely wouldn't stay away. But it's a watch and see game. You have to add in the teams that now have a DH. Additionally, every team in the NL is now going to be using a DH. So I'm actually bad. It's going to be fun.
Here's one thing, JJ, if I may. The Reds are so good that they basically let Aquino, who was fucking Babe Ruth last year, and Derek Dietrich just leave. They're just gone. They're just off the tape. Those two could be in the middle of any lineup in baseball, and they just go ahead. You can leave.
That's one thing I don't understand. What did they do with Aquino? I see him like not in the projected lineup, but when he's going to come off the bench, or
he went to. I don't even know. There's some sort of gray area. He's still kind of on the team, but not on the team. So basically, they cut him.
Now, Pete, any last thoughts here on the NL before we end up sliding into the AL conversation?
I'm kind of with Twatty. Not really. No. Okay. I have one final thought, which we didn't talk about. The Giants. The Giants look like one of those bad teams that is probably going to be overvalued still. Looks like a disaster in the making. If there's one team that if there was a way I could bet a prop on which team is going to quit first, it might be the Giants. They got a weird coaching staff. They got like an old lineup, iffy starters. They even lost Will Smith, the closer. If there's one team that if you could bet on like train wreck of the year, future, I would bet on the Giants. And probably, I'm guessing, they're going to be one of those bad teams that's still overvalued like the Orioles have been for the past couple of years.
Okay, perfect. So we'll slide into the American League conversation now.